Hey, moms and dads, Jeff Hunt here. I just want to take a few minutes, 5 minutes or less, to encourage you about some simple truths of God as you try to parent in the 21st century. I don't know where you're at, whether you're changing diapers, whether you're saying no to kids, or I'm sorry, kids are saying no to you all the time, whether you're just trying to survive all the Zoom calls you got to do for school. I don't know where you're at, but I'm going to take 5 minutes or less to encourage you. So here we go. Um, I remember as a kid walking into certain places and going, oh my goodness, this is so big, so ginormous. The walls are got to be 100 feet tall and it's got to be a million miles wide. And places just seem so ginormous. And then I remember going back to those places as an adult and going, this is much smaller than I remember. Did it shrink? What happened? Um, and so I remember thinking that, like, why did this seem so big before? This reminds me of a principle we use about God, uh, about teaching about God here in the children's ministry. We want to teach big truths about God, big truths about God that kids can grow into, not little truths about God that kids can grow out of. Big truths about God that kids can grow into, not little truths kids can grow out of. So, what does that mean? Let me give you an example. Actually, I'm going to give you three ways of how you can do this at home because I believe this is so important as a parent because I've seen so many kids walk away from the faith because they've been taught all these little truths about God. And then by the time they get to be 18, 19, 20, those little truths about God they've grown out of. And now they think that God's not that big, God's not that important. Um, and so uh, here's how parents, how you can teach big truths about God. One, get a little personal here. How's your time with God? If you're not in awe of God, if you're not spending time being in awe of God, how can you pass that on to your kids? Like, if you don't think there's big truths about God that you will never understand, but you want to learn more about, you can't model that for your kids. It's almost impossible. So, how's your time with God? Here's the second thing. Second thing, point to God in every situation that you can. Point to God as much as you can. Point to God as much as you can and how he impacts our life. So here's an example. Your kids right now, I've heard several of them say, or my son has said to me, I'm sure they've said to you, I'm tired of COVID. I do not like COVID. And so a way to teach a big truth to that, say, you know what? I agree. I don't like COVID either. But you know what? God was not surprised by COVID. He knew this was going to happen because he knows everything. And that's a big truth your child will catch in that 10-second conversation. Big truth about God, that he knows everything. Third thing, take every opportunity you can to point to the gospel. Every opportunity you can to point to the gospel. So, same conversation. Uh, I'm tired of COVID, all that kind of stuff. And then your child says, well, Mom, why can't God just fix the problem? And you say, you know what the problem is? Sin. Sin ruined this world. Sin messed up things. It's not just bad things you do. It made earth not as much fun of a place. It brought sickness, it brought death, it brought divorce, it brought brokenness into this world. And so if God were to fix that, he'd have to take us out. But you know what? God loves us so much. He provided a plan for us to be forgiven of all the bad things we've done so we can have a relationship with him. So we can eventually go to heaven and new earth to have an awesome, holy, amazing place that's going to be perfect one day. And so God sent his son, Jesus, to die on the cross. He was perfect, never did anything wrong, but he died on the cross and paid the penalty for all the bad stuff he'd done. And because of that, we can now have a relationship with God. We can now have a relationship with God. And so there you go. In about 2 minutes, you went from your child complaining about COVID again to sharing the gospel. And it's important to constantly share the gospel because it's something that they will continue to grow into. Their understanding of the gospel will continue to grow. Not that they need to say the prayer over and over again, but their understanding and their believing of it will continue to grow as they get older. They understand it one way as a 6-year-old and now another way as a 10-year-old. and you want to teach that big truth that the gospel is not a one-time thing. Like, we believe that the rest of our life. We got to cling to that for the rest of our lives. And I can't explain all that because you know why? God is too big for me. So as we close this up, we've got 5 seconds left. We want our kids to be like the child who's constantly going, oh my goodness, this is ginormous. We don't want them to be like the adult who's going, what happened? This shrunk. Praying for you guys and hope you're surviving school. Talk to you soon.